Do you trust that we have a Justice Department that will take seriously the concerns that African Americans have when you're seeing multiple young people hanged in various states? I believe one or two of them were in California. And it is frightening to think we have to talk about lynching again. I know that you are a big part of a bill to try to create a federal lynching law. What do you make of that?
Yeah. Well, you know, again, to your point about the Justice Department, one of the things in the Justice for policing is our bill is that where we have seen with Donald Trump and Bill Barr a failure of leadership out of the United States Department of Justice, we are also investing responsibilities and power in state attorneys general to take up the slack. So in California, for example, the state attorney general is overseeing the investigation of those hangings that have taken place in California. So where there is a failure of leadership at the federal level, we also should invest folks at the state level to do it. And Joy, you should also know, I'm together with my colleagues Cory Booker and Tina Smith and Ed Markey, we are proposing that Juneteenth be a national holiday, and we are dropping that bill to say that Juneteenth should actually be a national holiday.
Okay, well, making some news tonight on Senator
announcing it for the first time. Yes.
And announcing it, making some news, a federal holiday. That sounds like a capital idea. Thank you. Yes. We always love it when you break news, Senator. Thank you so much, Senator Kamala. Happy Juneteenth in advance. And maybe a fellow holiday.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And up next, a series of bombshells from John Bolton's tell-all book leave you wondering why nobody around Trump was raising alarms about his behavior, including John Bolton. More after this. Stay with us. Right after this.
Books that protect murderers. And so while I do think that there are some good initial steps being taken, I think that we will not see and know that true systemic change has happened until we see legitimate, permanent legislative opportunities offered, and we see that that legislation is not only adopted, but pursued and maintained.
Well, in that connection, Vice President Biden has spoken out. He's deplored this shooting and others. He has said he is not for defunding the police, but he's spoken up certainly for reforming police departments, for training. However, we now see dozens of liberal activist groups saying that Vice President Biden is not doing enough. They are calling on him to scale back police forces, cut funding even more, reduce incarcerations. Where do you come down on all that?
First and foremost, as someone who is an activist myself, I understand the power of a rallying cry. But I also recognize that the responsibility of policymakers is to take the vision that's being espoused, the anguish that is being expressed, and turn it into real policies that can not only be implemented but sustained. I think what we have to approach this with is reformation and transformation. Reformation in terms of fixing the behaviors and practices that actually govern how law enforcement operates. That means eliminating qualified immunity. It means banning chokeholds and other forms of murder. It means making sure that the use of lethal force is done with respect, and that we have humanization of those who face these charges. It's also about addressing the issues of no-knock warrants and of citizens' arrest. And on the transformation, what people are talking about is redistributive allocation of dollars, so that we are not simply investing in public safety, but we're building a safer public through education, through healthcare, through food security, through affordable housing, and that we not see these things as being in conflict, but they have to be part of a holistic vision of what America should look like, what law enforcement and what society should look like in the 21st century.
Well, let me just quickly follow up on that, because these groups wrote him a letter this week. Wrote Vice President Biden and said, as a senator, you not only supported, but in many cases authored and championed laws that expanded mass incarceration, increased police powers, exacerbated racial disparities in sentencing and surveillance. Are they right? And if they are, how does this reconcile with what Joe Biden is saying today?
What I hope those activists are seeing, what I believe Joe Biden has expressed in his very thoughtful and intentional response over the last month, is that mistakes were made. based on bad information, bad decision-making, that there were poor decisions made by a number of people across the country, and it came to a head in 1994. But as someone who has a brother who's been in and out of the carceral system, as someone who has fought not only for criminal justice reform and successfully achieved that in Georgia, but also co-authored legislation on police accountability, I know that people are capable of change, because the folks who helped me co-sponsor and move that legislation through Republican-dominated legislatures and with a Republican governor were people who 10 years before that never would have supported it. And so what I would ask from every person who's asking for change is to create grace and space for that change to occur. Look at what Joe Biden is saying today. Look at the ways he is trying to meet us in this moment and give him the benefit of the doubt, because the contrast and the real choice that we have is a man who currently occupies the White House, whose tepid response was the creation of a database as opposed to any meaningful attempt to actually meet this moment and understand that Black lives do indeed matter.
Finally, very quickly, Stacey Abrams, we know Joe Biden is considering you, among others, to be his vice presidential running mate. Why are you the most qualified? You haven't served in the Congress, in the Senate. You haven't run a state. What is your answer to that?
My answer is that Joe Biden knows who the most qualified person for him to be his partner will be. I have never espoused that I am more qualified than anyone else. He has a surfeit of good opportunities and fantastic, smart, capable women. I simply have said that when asked if I am in that number, I would say yes. I have legislative experience, I have deep legislative experience and success on a number of these issues. Criminal justice reform, environmental issues, reproductive health, healthcare, economics. But I also am a small business owner who understands the economy that we have to reform and recover. I'm someone who has worked in foreign policy, and I understand the moment that we're in because I was once an activist who pushed for change, and I used that to propel me to help deliver that change once I was in office. And I think as he looks to select a partner, I think he has no shortage of good choices, and I'm proud to be among the names that he's considering.
Stacey Abrams joining us tonight from Atlanta. We thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Woodruff.
While the virus was starting to rise. Also, we've told people that they don't need to wear masks if they feel uncomfortable wearing them. We've made that a political issue. So we have failed to heed the hard-won lessons from the first 3 months of the pandemic.
And now you have this rally, and the president was asked about the risk of people getting sick, and he responded, quote, "People have to know that, yes, you do, but it's a tiny, it's a very small percentage." And they've had to sign waivers. If they get sick or very sick or die, they can't sue. He's sort of shrugging it off. Now the venue wants a safety plan. It's indoor. It's 20,000 people. Masks are optional. Social distancing is not part of the current plan. I mean, what really is the risk in Tulsa?
The risk is real. Tulsa just had a record number of cases. In the last week, the number of COVID-19 cases in Tulsa is up 111%. Look, if a club owner tried to overpack their venue with people, the fire marshal will shut it down. It's unsafe to have this event in Tulsa right now, and the county health commissioner should shut it down. I think it's possible they will. It's not safe to do it.
All right, well, we're going to see what happens. Obviously, it's now down to basically...
compelling. So the world has... It's extraordinary, and so that is the burden that the president is dealing with, and he's got more information than we have, to be sure, and this is something that's not forgivable. This isn't just a policy mistake, and we can't walk away from it. But what has happened to President Xi, he's been in power 7 years, and he's never ever had this kind of a pushback.
And so do I, right? But he said he knew the chief of police and he knew several law enforcement officers in this town. He said that would make sure that I leave this town for good because they don't accept N-words in Sioux Falls.
Sports have been a major part of Harvey Ennell's life growing up in Sioux Falls and Brandon. Even now as a linebacker for the University of Sioux Falls, he's provided perspective to teammates and friends about issues that might weigh heavier for him than others.
I can just remember very vividly the first day that we talked about racism in school, and they're talking about slavery and Martin Luther King and everything that's going on, and all I can see is all my classmates are just looking at me, trying to see how I'm reacting, and it just kind of puts you on the other side, it feels like, where you're, I don't know, you don't belong, and you can definitely feel that energy. It just feels like, you know, I watch these videos, there's been, you know, however many dozens, hundreds of videos of black people being shot and killed in the streets, or black people being chased down by dogs or whatever, and it's just like, man, that guy looks like me.
As a state champion for Washington's 2015 football team, Harvey is used to competing, but success doesn't always come without a few low blows.
It's always been a response in anger, or an ignorant statement, or just something slight that lets me know that they probably don't think of me as an equal, and they just kind of express that in a slight, in a soft, subtle way, but I always notice it, and it's constant, so you kind of get used to it.
Things were not always settled for Buffalo, New York native Vonnie Harari. On a road trip with his cousin and a friend, he remembers what happens when they stopped at a gas station in a small town.
And my cousin gathers up the things that he wants and he puts it on the counter, and the guy behind the counter just looks past him, right? He doesn't acknowledge him at all, just looks past him. We think it's weird, he's saying, hey, hello, you know, he just ignores him. I grab my stuff, I put it on the counter. He ignores me, doesn't say anything. I'm like, what's going on? My white friend comes over, he gathers all the things together, and the guy says, hey, how can I help you? And then he does a transaction with him. And that was the first time that he felt what we felt. Because prior to that, he knew it happened, but he didn't necessarily think it happened with that frequency, and he didn't think it happened like that. And injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. And the thing that people just have to ask themselves is, what about someone else being in pain doesn't do something to you, doesn't at least make you ask the question of why is this happening, especially for something that may be in your control. Even right now, where we're having these conversations of these, you know, of semantics about all lives mattering and black lives mattering, it's like, for anybody who has those questions, I say, just say the words. Just say the words. Black lives matter. That's it. Just say those words. And ask yourself, why does it make you feel uncomfortable? Why do those 3 words make you feel uncomfortable? Even if you believe all lives matter, you cannot believe that while simultaneously not being able to look someone in the eye that is going through pain and say, I get it. Black lives do matter.
Coming up, the trust between police and the communities that they serve has become critically important in the last few months, especially. What is working and what is not, when we return.
KSFY News is sponsored by Menards.
Make your Father's Day family meal.
Right.
Rather than testify and help the American people and help United States senators make an impeachment decision. That's true. But he also lived through years of this, as he says things like Putin can play Trump like a fiddle. He talked about Donald Trump privately complaining about journalists and saying they should be executed. They are scumbags. They should be executed. That was said in front of him. Given that he knew all of this, that he knew what Helsinki meant, he knew what Donald Trump did in Ukraine, was John Bolton fit to be National Security Advisor?
Well, I certainly don't think so, Joy. I mean, you're right. He went to work every day and went along with what he himself now describes as a fundamentally corrupt American foreign policy and a fundamentally corrupt White House. He was in the room at these times. He was there when the President of the United States was seeking Chinese intervention in our election on his behalf. In the room when the President of the United States endorsed the Chinese strategy to put 1 million Uyghurs, that's a Muslim minority in China, in concentration camps. And frankly, he only seemed to have left after Donald Trump did not go all the way to a war with Iran that John Bolton was pursuing. So I think we can certainly question John Bolton's judgment here. But at the same time, Joy, the stories he tells, the details he provides, fully corroborate what we already knew to be true about Donald Trump and fills in a broader picture. So we saw in great detail in the impeachment process, for instance, that Donald Trump was willing to make the foreign policy of the United States serve his own political interest in Ukraine, while John Bolton just shows us how he did the same thing in China. So these aren't new lessons about Trump, but there are new details that go along with the things we already know to be true about this president.
Well, I mean, I think you make a real
hospitalizations happening here right now. So we know this is a real increase in cases. And I should add that the mayor of Dade County is well aware of this, and he is ready to take action because he doesn't want to see this be the next epicenter. And we are going to do whatever is necessary in a polite and friendly way to try and avoid this becoming the next epicenter.
So Dr. Marty, you've called this virus a monster. What do you think people need to understand who are becoming complacent or perhaps acting a bit blasé right now?
I don't think people understand what this virus is in its raw form. We look at the numbers and we say, well, it's a tremendous amount of people in the world, 8.3 million. We're almost at 500,000 dead, and that's horrible, believe me. But if we didn't have modern medicine, if we didn't have ICUs, if we didn't have the tools, the genomics, and all those things that are really new, the new understanding of immunology that we've developed over the last 30, 40 years, those 20% of people that would go to hospital would die. That's really what it is. And if you think of it that way, if you try and compare this virus to other outbreaks, to the 1918 pandemic or to the bubonic plague, etc., you have to put it in perspective of what are the tools that we have available to us today? What are the medicines that we have? What ways can we keep people alive? And that's where the difference is.
That's a pretty powerful way of looking at it. And I hope one that people take note. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
People are going to be looking for Sioux Falls, looking for South Dakota, and asking us, how did you do it, right? To me, that holds a lot of weight. That holds a lot of value, and it really speaks to what a true community is.
Brookings was one of those examples at the beginning of June as planners presented their idea for a peaceful protest with city leaders.
It spread a good message in regards to what our community is about.
Assistant Police Chief Derek Powers knows Brookings is unique for its diversity as a college town, and building relationships is just as important as enforcing the law.
People who come here, we don't understand what their experience has been with law enforcement, and so we want to make sure that we're receptive to that.
Next up, an intimate sit-down with some area teams. Their thoughts right after the break.
Would you rather have hiccups for a week or the worst haircut ever? That's a lose-lose.
Away from your body, so you feel cool night after.
I think as the economy continues to pick up, it looks like it's on the upswing in terms of retail sales. The job numbers we saw last week were a lot better than people expected. I think as that improves, I think so will his numbers. On a lot of these things regarding race, racial justice, crime, and so on, I really wish he'd give a speech on this, either from the Oval Office or if not that, from the East Room of the White House with an audience there if he needs it during prime time. He had some wonderful, very warm and unifying remarks that he gave at Cape Canaveral right when the riots were at full bore. He talked about national unity. He talked about the Justice Department's civil rights investigation and so on. Great speech. Guess what? That got a grand total of 13 seconds on ABC Evening News, 5 seconds on CBS, 11 seconds on NBC. That wonderful, warm, unifying message was just about censored. The way he can get the full message out is to have a primetime address to the nation without interruption, without editing. They can say whatever they want afterwards, but for at least 20, 25, 30 minutes, the president will have the full attention of the nation. I very much wish he would do that.
Sounds like good advice for any president in the moment that we're in right now. President Trump on race relations, 32% approve, 61% disapprove. Those numbers haven't moved all that much since back in July of 2019, so they don't seem to be that affected by what's going on right now. Richard, what do you make of all these numbers?
So let's put this in context. This is the single biggest lead that a challenger has had against an incumbent president at this stage of a presidential campaign in the history of polling. And incidentally, the Fox poll is consistent with Quinnipiac and some others that have come out today as well. And in every swing state, Joe Biden is ahead. And we know that the Trump campaign is feeling it because they're spending money in states like Ohio and Iowa, where Trump won by 9 or 10 points in 2016. And the difference on what you say about race relations is there's a higher salience now than there was a month or in October of last year.
And we were wondering what might be going through the minds of our youth. Working alongside the local school district, we asked to be connected with students of color willing to talk. And here's just a small part of the conversation had with a group of very strong and insightful young women.
I'm Agnes Kabwali. I am 16 and I go to Washington High School. I'm Wazima Maleo and I'm 16 and I go to Washington High School. I'm Miriam James. I'm 16 and I go to Washington High School.
I'm Nidema Lucy and I'm 16 years old and I go to Tri-Valley.
Hey, I'm Hala. I'm 16 and I go to Washington High School.
I'm Antoinette Vita. I'm 15 and I go to Washington.
I'm Danielle Kong. I'm 19 years old and I just graduated from Lincoln High School.
What are the conversations you're having in your home, and what are your thoughts?
In my home, we have been having conversations about how we need to protect ourselves when we are amongst Caucasian people and when we're around cops. We need to know we've been learning how to carry ourselves better so then our Caucasian peers do not feel threatened by us. We go out and now it's a little bit more scary because your heart isn't at ease when you go out. It's basically like, I'm not going to even lie here. I basically fear for my life every single time I walk out of my house and I go into a public place because Sioux Falls is not a very, diverse place. When I go to the mall, I'm surrounded by Caucasian people. It scares me that somebody around me might think that I'm trying to harm them and they've already called the police. And I'm scared of the people who are supposed to be protecting me are the ones that I fear the most currently at this moment.
I saw all of you shake your heads when you said you fear for your life when you walk out the door. Is that true?
Yes.
Was that true before the events of the last few weeks?
Before, it wasn't as bad because it's not something that we saw all over the media. It wasn't as talked about, but we all knew at some point we could end up in a position like that.
I've kind of always, obviously not as aware of what's going on. I do have a white mother, so I grew up in a white household with white older siblings. I have 3 younger siblings. Basically, just growing up, I never really understood why mom would tell me to keep my hands out of my pockets when around law enforcement. I never understood why I couldn't wear my hood after dark. I never understood why when I'm playing with a toy, I have to make sure that toy is visible to everyone so people understand that it's not a weapon. I never understood why, but obviously now that I'm older, kind of those teachings were things, just a method of survival as a person of color.
When I was younger and my mom would tell me things like that, like let's say when you go to the store, always get a receipt and get it back so they don't think you're stealing something. I thought it was something normal that all kids are told, and I didn't really realize that not everybody goes through that. Because one time at school I was asked something about that and I was like, don't you guys always like either get a bag or something? And people were like, why would you do that? And I'm like, so they don't think you're stealing something. And I realized in that moment that not everyone goes through the same things because they don't have to.
I never thought I would have to go through this literally because I was born in Africa too, so coming to America was like, okay, when coming here I never thought like I'll ever have to experience because of my skin color.
I feel like the reason why now racism is a huge topic and why now the black community is taking it very seriously is because I saw a black man who could potentially in the future be my brother, who could potentially in the future be my father, get murdered by a white man. And instantly everybody was defending him.
George Floyd is only the tip of the iceberg in this entire matter, because racism has been going on since America began. It's not just because George Floyd was murdered. Like, yes, that enraged a lot of people, but that's not the only reason why this entire thing is going on. He might have triggered something, but it's so much bigger than just you or me or him alone. It's the entire system.
What these young women feel needs to happen for any meaningful, lasting change in how they plan to help. We're going to hear more from them tomorrow at 4. Also, where were the young men in that conversation? We're going to look at that with 2 of our colleagues here at Dakota News Now when we come back.
Between the Carolinas, between the Virginias, and they're not uncommon things, and it's nice to share that with people to understand that not everything is always as it seems. We see things through different eyes. You see things differently than I see them.
Absolutely.
As well too.
I think right now it's the perfect opportunity to for people to really get their voice out and really express how they feel during this time. Speaking from my own personal experience, growing up in North Carolina, there wasn't a whole lot of dialogue or just being open to talking about race. Now you got a lot of open dialogue. A lot of people are being encouraged by this to just kind of speak out and protest, and even businesses are getting in on this and trying to produce that change as well.
It's pretty amazing, the sea of change that we are seeing so quickly when you're talking about that. You were mentioning how important it is to give voice to these issues. Kevin, when we first started seeing what happened with George Floyd, I asked you, who are the black leaders in our community that you look to speak when something happens, or we're looking for that voice? And you said, I don't know. I don't know who that is here. We've seen a couple of them, but why?
I think it stems from what has happened in this country in the past in terms of people speaking out about inequality. This country in the past has kind of shunned people that might have spoken out. And I think that in a lot of ways that's kind of held people back from wanting to step up. I mean, there's Barack Obama, there's Cory Booker, there are some people that I think will speak out, but not in the sense that can really speak to the community as a whole at this point.
We need to continue growing these voices. Sam, really quick, we obviously have very little time. What's the most important thing you hope anyone watching takes from this special, and what we hope to do to continue the conversation?
I think that there's a lot of people that can step up that may not realize that they have the power to do that. Just lead by example. I've always believed that that their actions always speak louder than their words. And I think there's a lot of people that have more power to change things than they might believe.
All right, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know, even talking about diversity in newsrooms, we need to grow more leaders. So we will be back here in just 1 minute with our closing thoughts.
The First Alert Weather.
They make a good team.
Has been marching, and come November, she will be voting.
If you don't go out and vote, you're voting for Trump. Period. That's it. There's no other way around it.
With tributes to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor painted across Milwaukee, along with murals and signs calling for peace and justice, the soundtrack of American politics is now animated by protests, with anger toward President Trump resonating far louder than adoration for Joe Biden.
There's a time when you go to the polls to vote for something. And then there's a time when you go and you take a stand against something.
Prentice McKinney has been watching these demonstrations closely, stirring memories from 1967, when he helped lead a fight for fair housing in 200 straight days of marches. These images seared into his mind, like coming face to face with 2 policemen outside the mayor's office.
I came in love.
In today's protest, he sees broader diversity with a unifying purpose.
About Waterpik Sonic Fusion. When
anytime at Ver90GM.com. Ver90GM in Mitchell. We deliver for you. Make your Father's Day family
and has been proven to deck today. They can't stain your deck tomorrow.
Sandwich bread is only 88 cents.
Just a few months ahead of the presidential election about how he's treating our community.
Angela Lang founded a group to mobilize.
Enjoy every unforgettable moment. From our family to yours. Fairway. Your favorite concerts at Grand Falls Casino and Golf Resort have been rescheduled. A tribute to the Kings, March 27th. Wayne Newton, September 25th. The Guess Who, October 16th. And Michael Carbonaro, December 18th. Visit GrandFallsCasinoResort.com for complete details.
Well, we're at the end of this half-hour special. This is only the beginning of ongoing, more in-depth stories we hope to share on race relations and in racial injustice.
And we are working right now to also have these conversations with the Native American community here in South Dakota, and we hope to bring you that perspective here in just a couple of weeks. We want to thank you for joining us, folks. Good night.
Would you rather have hiccups for a week or the worst haircut ever? That's a lose-lose.
Intentionally didn't vote 4 years ago.
Do you plan to vote this November? This November, yeah, I actually do plan to vote. This November, I think that it's going to be more serious of a vote.
And that gives hope to McKinney that these young demonstrators will keep their eye on November.
I think they'll be there. I think that's what Trump is afraid of.
Now, the anger and disdain for President Trump, Aaron, so clear by the Democratic voters we talked to. Whether or not they voted in 2016, they said they will vote in November. The burden, though, also on Joe Biden to excite Democratic voters. It's one reason he opened a $15 million ad campaign today in 6 states, including here in Wisconsin. And no coincidence, he'll be accepting the Democratic nomination here 2 months from this week.
Wow.
Aaron.
All right, Jeff, thank you very much, and thanks to all of you for joining us. The CNN Global Town Hall, Coronavirus, Facts and Fears, begins now.
Yesterday that the coronavirus is, quote, dying out. Well, I'll be here tomorrow at 7 p.m. and All In with Chris Hayes is up next.
Tonight on All In, surprise victory for Dreamers and a nightmare week for Trump. Amidst the pandemic, protests, and terrible polls, how the president sabotaged himself in the Supreme Court. The man who won the DAKA case and beat Trump, California Attorney General Javier Becerra, will join me. Then, as the coronavirus surges in some red states,
need new laws, more good faith, more attention to injustice. And that sounds right to most Americans. Americans are decent people. They want to do the right thing. Certainly Republicans in Congress appear to believe all of this, or maybe they're just so scared they pretend they believe it. Either way, just yesterday, the GOP leadership enthusiastically backed a law enforcement reform bill. They're proud of that. They seem to think that reining in the police will fix the underlying problems. And pretty soon we can all get back to living in 2014 again. Republicans appear to believe this is a policy debate. But Democrats know better than that. They don't lie to themselves. They understand there is a revolution in progress. The death of George Floyd may have sparked widespread outrage, sincere outrage, and they may share that outrage. But they also know that what is happening now has very little to do with George Floyd or people like him. Like all revolutions, the point is to destroy the current system and replace it with something new. But replace it with what? That's the question the rest of us should be asking right now. We should know what's coming. We know what we have now. Our current system has been in place for hundreds of years. It's based on a very simple idea. All people are created by God with equal moral value. Period. Everyone.
In an interview published today in the Wall Street Journal, the president was asked whether he thought people are wearing masks to show their disapproval of him. Could be, he said. Yeah, it could be. He also called testing overrated. Meantime, as we'll hear in a moment, Dr. Anthony Fauci on tape lamenting what he calls the anti-science bias some people have. We'd like to ask Dr. Fauci about that in person tonight and a lot of things, but our request to have him on the program was denied yet again. You see, he may be one of the nation's top scientists, but he's under the thumb of the White House. Our requests to interview him have to go through the White House. They have to approve it. Our nation's scientists, being paid with taxpayer money on coronavirus, cannot speak unless the White House lets them speak to us. We actually asked for any doctor from the task force to join us, but we were denied. Now remember, when we used to see Fauci and Birx every day when they used to answer questions from the briefing room. But the White House doesn't do that anymore because the president suggested we inject disinfectant into humans to experiment on them to see if you can bleach the invisible enemy out of the body. He embarrassed himself, and for that, the coronavirus task force were brought to an end. The White House doesn't want to talk about this virus, and they couldn't be clearer about that. They want the American people to believe that it's nearly gone away, dying out, as the president just said. Not a great choice of words, by the way. The virus is not dying out, but people continue to die. 617 today as of 7 o'clock tonight. The coronavirus task force that was famously taking that big, strong, quote, whole-of-government approach, which Vice President Pence talked about so often, well, they've gone into hiding. It's like they're in the witness protection program or something. They don't hold public briefings anymore. They don't update the American people about the new hotspots that are flaring up daily, including where the president is going this weekend. No, this administration wants you to believe that the only reason we're seeing increasing numbers of cases is because of increased testing. And that's just simply a lie, and they know it. It's a barefaced lie in Vice President Pence's case, violating his own task force guidelines about wearing masks. I mean, he's so scared of the president because the president doesn't wear masks. He so wants to curry favor with the president that he doesn't wear a mask. He even tried earlier this week to get governors to perpetuate the lie about testing. Then he got caught and he just merrily moved along. This is gaslighting turned up to 20. But be that as it may, the absence of someone from the task force won't stop us from bringing you everything that we can within an hour, and there's a lot to talk about.
That's right, Anderson.
The end of March is a pre-coronavirus record. Here's what one unemployment line in Kentucky looks like. This is just a snapshot of America under Donald Trump. The fact that people are still losing their jobs at this rate means the economic pain is continuing to cascade. On top of that, we have the president's former national security advisor, who is beloved by large parts of the right, basically saying the president is an idiot, a huckster, and a weakling. And then Trump's own niece is publishing a book saying essentially the same thing. And all across the country, protests continue against police abuse and racial injustice, an issue that poll after poll shows the president squarely on the wrong side of. To sum up the president's week thus far, and it's only Thursday, he's gotten smacked down by the Supreme Court multiple times on huge high-profile issues. He is not only overseeing, but actively encouraging an ongoing coronavirus catastrophe. Millions and millions of Americans do not have a job, and the economy still looks really scary, and the country has turned solidly against him and his agenda of racial injustice and bigotry. So if we learned anything from the last election day, it is how quickly things can change. We've seen
just identity politics, because they know very well where that leads. Yet identity politics is accelerating here. It shouldn't surprise you that most of the people pushing this poison are benefiting from it. They're using the recent chaos to codify dangerous trends already in progress. A permanently unequal society where some citizens are elevated and others are crushed. Winners and losers preordained by law. That's the country they're working toward. At the same time, and this is always the tell, they lecture you with maximum self-righteousness about how they're doing precisely the opposite of that. What they're really doing, they claim, is upholding equality under the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law. No one's above the law.
No one is above the law. That no person is above the law. Nobody should be above the law.
Nobody should be above the law. No one is above the law.
No one is above the law, they scold. Meaning, you aren't. You are not above their laws. You must obey those laws to the letter or you will face certain punishment. Others, meanwhile, get a pass or an entirely separate set of laws. Revolutionaries don't acknowledge universal standards. Increasingly, they admit this out loud. They're not pretending anymore. In California, Democrats are moving to repeal Proposition 209. 209 explicitly bans racial discrimination in hiring and education. In other words, Democrats in California are now fighting for discrimination. This is not considered strange in 2020. No one even mentions it. A couple of weeks ago, Governor Andy Bashir of Kentucky announced plans to bring universal health insurance to his state, but not for all citizens, just for people with the right skin color. Everyone else would pay, but only certain ethnic groups would benefit. Andy Bashir is still in office tonight. No one has tried to impeach him for suggesting this, because ideas like this are everywhere now. They're totally unchallenged. This is the most divisive possible way to run a country. If you wanted to make certain that your children would hate each other, you would hold them to different standards. And they certainly would. There is a reason that racial tension is rising in this country. It's by design. But race is not the only dividing line. The coronavirus lockdowns have nothing to do with race, with white or black, thank God. They're probably the only thing in America right now that doesn't. Quarantines are instead scientific. They're purely a matter of public health. That's what they told us, and we believe them. We sat passively as they destroyed our country's economy, as they indicted Americans for trying to make a living. And then the Black Lives Matter riots started, and we learned that it was all fake. The very same officials who threatened us with arrest for going outside urged their own voters to flood the streets. And they did, and no one was punished. How could this happen? It was such a flagrant double standard, not even hidden, right in your face. They didn't try to explain it. They didn't bother to justify it. Why? Anyone familiar with totalitarian regimes can tell you exactly why and what's going on. This is ritual humiliation. Forcing people to accept mistreatment is a time-tested way to subdue them. Of course we're not treating you fairly, they're telling us. You don't deserve fairness. You deserve what you get. That's the message. And after a while, the population accepts this. Some believe it. They blame themselves. That's the goal. To an officer before, charged with murder for shooting a man who was pointing his own taser at him.
No, I've never seen that, and I've never seen anyone charged with murder without a full investigation.
Right. Thank you for pointing that out. That there is, or was at least, an investigation in progress of this incident, but the district attorney, who is in a runoff for re-election and facing corruption charges, decided that he wasn't going to wait for it. So how are police officers in Atlanta responding to this?
Well, the police officers are definitely scared to, and I guess scared isn't it, but they're afraid to do their job at this point, not because they're afraid of how to do it. They've been trained to do that. They know what they're doing. The problem is they've been betrayed and backstabbed by their own mayor, the DA, and now everybody's thinking that if we go out and do our job the way we were trained and lawfully, we still could be terminated because the mayor and the city doesn't like the way it looked on video. Well, the problem with that is 95% of all videos that you watch of police officers, doing their job don't look good. So if that's a standard we're going to go by, that's a terrible standard. And then you've got a DA who doesn't even do an investigation or allow the proper authorities to do the investigation, as he has done for years now, that he makes that decision and goes as far as charges them to also almost put a person to death for doing his job.
Yeah, charged with the death penalty offense. Do you think this will draw attention away from the accusation that the DA stole money, government money, from a nonprofit?
Well, I hope not, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen, and we appreciate you doing everything that you can to keep that from happening, but I do believe that is what he is trying to do.
Has it occurred to you, Mr. Champion, that politicians in Atlanta, you said police officers won't be able to do their jobs, and that's clearly true. Has it occurred to you that maybe that's the point of this? Maybe there are politicians in Atlanta who don't want police officers to enforce the law?
It's definitely crossed our mind, especially, since we had, and I distinguish between the protesters and the rioters, but since the rioters are here and we hear them calling out to, they don't need police departments and we don't do anything but, kill innocent people. So I think they're listening to that and they've decided maybe we don't need a police department, and that is the worst decision they could ever make.
You've been a cop, obviously. You represent them as a union official. What do you think would happen to Atlanta if the police disappeared?
Well, it would look a lot worse than when we had the riots, and then the question would become just like what we're seeing now. And I wish people would look at that, of what's going on in the north with the taking of the area. Somebody will eventually take up arms and say they are the law there, which is what's happened already. And once they take those up and do it, what are their, at least now you have laws and rules and training that we have to abide by and go through. What are these people going to do? They're just going to decide what they want to do, when they want to do, and they're going to kill or hurt whoever they decide they feel it's necessary.
That is such a wise point, and I'm glad that you said that out loud. If you got rid of all police, it wouldn't mean the end of authority. It would mean the rise of armed militia. And it would mean that, you know, we basically become a third world country. And maybe that's what they're looking for. Vincent Champion, I really appreciate your coming on tonight. I can't imagine what your life is like right now. Good luck.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Well, a final point tonight, a kind of coda, which really tells you everything about what's happening.
Represent an albatross around the neck of the Republican Party.
Right, but then I keep thinking back to the Roy Moore test, right? Which to me was like, here's a person even before credible accusations that he had preyed upon, molested underage girls, right? Even before that, who had no business in your public office, none whatsoever. And when he won the primary, like everyone sort of got in line, and it seems like we're going to get another test here of that same thing.
Right. I think that there very much is, this will be a test, and I think you will see people get in line. You know, she has endorsements from Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz, and so I think that there will be a point at which people try to amalgamate her views into the wider Republican Party as making QAnon into something about, you know, standing up for Trump against the deep state, when QAnon began as a theory that Robert Mueller and Donald Trump are working together to arrest Hillary Clinton and Tom Hanks. And so I think that there will be that effort. But if, you know, with Roy Moore's election, let's keep in mind that what you saw in the reason why Doug Jones won that race is not just because a lot of people voted for him, but a lot of Republicans stayed home. You know, this is a challenge for moderate Republicans.
There was a breaking point.
Who still exists. You know, I think that
there is a breaking point.
There is a breaking point, and I also think that there's a moment here. If you're a moderate Republican, this isn't what you want either. You know, you're not hearing from these leaders of the party saying that this is what they're looking for. It's just that this particular base is so specific.
Dane Costin, who writes for Vox, thank you so much for making time tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Still to come, new allegations that President Trump sought re-election help from another foreign leader and how it played a role in the unfolding public health disaster just ahead.
So,
I think, yeah.
No, I really admire what you're doing, Dr. Stanford. You've been doing this mobile testing around Philadelphia. My understanding is you've tested nearly 6,000 people so far, and you're going to where people are, right? Neighborhoods, churches, parks, and shelters. I guess this is the whole point, but why did you have to? You're a pediatric surgeon. That's what you do. What made you do this, be the person to do this?
Well, Sanjay, if it's okay to call you Sanjay.
Please. Yes.
Okay. Sanjay, when you and I were both in medical school, we heard about these social determinants of health for over 2 decades. And when you hear Dr. Fauci say them now, they're no different than what we heard when we were in our 20s. And so as I was sitting watching these reports, hearing the same rhetoric over and over, I said, I'm not going to sit and listen and have another town hall and sit around the table and talk about it. I can do something at this point. I'm a business owner. I have access to, I have an account with LabCorp. I can order testing kits. I have colleagues who are board certified that would donate their time. And we needed to just identify the individuals. So when we started, we literally went to people's homes and we went to where they were. We parked the van outside. They came outside of their homes and we tested them on the street. And we did that throughout the city. And then as we grew, we knew we had to go to places that African Americans trust. And that's the church. Whether you go to church or not, they're in their community. So people walked, then they walked home and told a neighbor. They walked, they rode their bikes, and someone saw them with a mask. And they'd say, hey, where'd you get that mask? Oh, around the corner at the church. And then folks came over. We also went to homeless shelters. And when the residents were there for a meal, we stood outside, we answered their questions. They were scared that we might be giving them the disease or that it would hurt. We answered their questions and then we tested them. We went to street corners, we went to parks. Wherever people were, we went to them because when they tried to go to most of the testing sites that were in the suburbs, which they had to take buses and trains to get to, they were turned away because they weren't in a car. So we created barrier-free testing to test folks.
How do, I mean, inequalities in how black Americans are treated in the healthcare system have existed before COVID. COVID has certainly brought them to the fore. How does that change? I mean, that is a systematic issue which we have, has been reported on for years and years and years.
Well, I'll tell you, the mantra that I developed for the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium is simply access, empathy, and action. So you need to open your doors. There were so many restrictions on people that needed the test the most. And then when they come to you, welcome them. Treat them like you would treat your mother, your brother, your sister, someone you care about. Maybe when they come in a room, sit down instead of standing up and being in a rush to go somewhere. And it's great to talk about it, but things need to happen. I've been part of so many NIH studies where we come up with great ideas. You form focus groups and communities, you come with coffee and treats, and then once your study is done and you publish the paper, everybody leaves. All the support that was there is gone, and someone has a new paper on their resume.
Dr. Ayla Stanford.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being with us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Has returned to Sioux Falls. Cashback is huge.
Protest sparked by the killing of George Floyd, who died while a former Minneapolis police officer kneeled on his neck. Her name is Mary Elizabeth Taylor, the Assistant Secretary of State for Legislative Affairs, saying that the president's actions cut sharply against her core values and convictions, and that she must follow her conscience and resign. Wow. When was the last time we heard that from this administration, if ever? Finally, someone in this administration having the decency to resign rather than be one of Trump's enablers. Any Republicans on Capitol Hill listening? Any? Anybody? Bueller? No one? Okay. Maybe her resignation was triggered by Trump's response to peaceful protesters at Lafayette Park near the White House being gassed and trampled by police, just so he could stage a photo op in front of historic St. John's Church holding a brand spanking new shiny Bible. Or maybe it was his complete lack of empathy for the tens of thousands of Americans, people of all colors, who took to the streets for weeks protesting police brutality against African Americans. Unfortunately, there was some violence and there was looting, but that was limited. Think about the number of people who were out there, the number of protests. The majority of protests in America's cities were peaceful. But Trump lumped all protesters together in a tweet, calling them thugs and warning that when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Interesting. Trump, who demonstrates his ignorance on a regular basis, is now trying to make that ignorance a virtue.
Language about the conduct of the police officers in Minneapolis who are charged with the murder of George Floyd. Republican senators in the hearing agreed with Democrats that they had to do something. But when the Republican Senate bill was unveiled this week, the Republican position became, we have to recommend something. For example, a Republican bill does not ban chokeholds by police, but it encourages police departments to stop using chokeholds. What prosecutors are now calling the police murder of RAYSHARD Brooks in Atlanta this weekend has only increased the pressure for congressional action. The two officers accused in that case turned themselves into authorities today. The now fired police officer Garrett Rolfe, who shot RAYSHARD Brooks in the back twice, is being held without bond and will appear in magistrate court tomorrow at 12 noon. Officer Devin Brosnan, who did not fire his weapon, was booked this morning and released on bond. Officer Brosnan appeared with his lawyer on MSNBC earlier today. But in the interview, Officer Brosnan refused to answer any specific questions about the incident.
Officer Brosnan and Mr. Samuel, I'm curious, and Officer Brosnan, thinking back to that night, are there things you wish were done differently and were handled differently?
At this point in time, especially until I speak with the GBI, that's a conversation I want to have with them and any other parties who are investigating it.
Officer Brosnan's lawyer took issue with Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard saying that Officer Brosnan would be a witness for the state in the prosecution of Garrett Rolfe.
He's not cooperating against anybody. He's going to provide accurate information about what happened. He's going to describe what's in these videos and in these body cams. He's going to describe what he saw, what he heard during these events. Witnesses are witnesses. They don't belong to either party. They don't belong to the prosecution. He doesn't belong to the state. And he's not going to testify against someone.
There is actually no legal disagreement between the district attorney and Officer Brosnan's defense lawyer on this, although the defense lawyer is trying to pretend that there's a disagreement. What the district attorney said yesterday is that Officer Brosnan is fully cooperating with the district attorney. Officer Brosnan has already been interviewed more than once by the district attorney before he was even charged. They have recorded every word he has said to the district attorney. And what the district attorney meant by referring to Officer Brosnan as a state's witness is that the district attorney intends to call Devin Brosnan as a witness in the case. And the reason the district attorney is going to call him as a witness in the case is that the district attorney believes that what Officer Brosnan has already told the district attorney will help convict Garrett Rolfe in court. It's as simple as that.
Schools and work at decent jobs, all from the comfort of home. But poorer people of all races, especially the ones stuck in cities, they work at essential jobs, and they'll pay the price.
I could see the glass being completely just shattered.
As her husband Ralph was trying to clean up outside, Alvarez says she turned to see him on the ground in front of a large crowd, unconscious.
I started to scream. I tried to wake him. He wouldn't wake back up. And I tried to call for the police. No one was picking up.
No one was picking up. It doesn't have to be this way. President Trump has shown that he will fight and beat the business lobbies who don't want to pay decent wages to American workers. Unlike Biden, he'll actually stand up to the pro-China lobby and keep good jobs here at home. And unlike Biden, he'll fight crime, and he'll work to keep our cities safe and vibrant for all. Unlike Biden, he'll resist efforts to drag America into useless wars. Just ask John Bolton. And his party stands with him. The reason the left keeps bringing up ancient history is because today's GOP is ready, willing, and eager to work with African Americans. We want to empower them, and we want them to make a major part of make up the major part of the GOP coalition. Any claim to the contrary is a lie, and it's toxic, and we won't stand for it. But Democrats have nothing substantive to offer.
You not accept any responsibility for this? And if you don't, for the love of God, tell me your logic for not accepting any responsibility. I mean, let me say just a couple things before I give you your shot. The first of which is politicians aren't exempt. Our tradecraft has fully utilized these tools to our benefit, and to suggest otherwise would be hypocrisy. But it reminds me of a little bit of if somebody had a bullhorn to amplify their communication, and they walked up next to you and they put it right in your ear and they kept using it until you got deaf. For you to not accept responsibility as the bullhorn maker, to me, seems a bit of a stretch of product liability immunity. The fact is, civic discourse is degraded. Mr. Himes has set forth the extreme threat that this serves to our country. The fact is that you amplify it. The fact is that you profit off of it. And First Amendment considerations, which are really important notwithstanding, do you not accept some responsibility for this? Mr. Glacier, let's start with you, sir.
Congressman, I think we have critical responsibilities. Yes, to ensure that debate on our platforms is authentic, also to ensure that it is as open and positive and collaborative as possible. Part of what you're identifying, Congressman, is how humans interact in public discussion. It's why we've taken very serious looks. It's why we have thought about what we promote, how we promote, what we recommend to address exactly these challenges. I do also think that the rise of social media platforms, the rise of the internet, has led to voices being heard at volumes that have never happened before. And the most difficult challenge here is how to peel these two apart. How do you mitigate some of the challenges you're describing? And I agree, these are essential challenges that we're all grappling with, without also undermining the incredible profusion of new voices we've heard in public debate. We've looked at and we've done a number of changes to attempt to tackle this. I would never suggest that we can solve this problem alone. I think part of this is how humans engage, and the platforms have an opportunity and a responsibility to do everything we can to encourage and enable the best discussion, but I'd never suggest that we can solve this problem, Congressman.
Well, I'm reminded of what Dr. King said. The moral arc of the universe bends toward justice. In this case, the moral arc of social media platforms isn't bending toward justice fast enough. Look, there isn't a person on this call that hasn't been told 1,000 times by their staff, stop reading the comments. And they ask us to stop reading the comments because they are so unbelievably uncivil and personal. It's character assassination and demonization. And it manifests itself in this polarization, the Exhibit A, for which is there are no members of the minority party sitting in on this. So polarized has our political culture become. The fact is, it is toxic. The fact is, it is a threat. The fact is, you are the bullhorn manufacturer. And the fact is, you're not moving fast enough. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
America runs on Duncan.
Devin, did you know GEICO is now offering an extra 15% credit on car and motorcycle policies?
Okay.
That's 15% on top of what GEICO could already save you. So what are you waiting for? DJ Khaled to be your motivational coach?
Yo, Devin, remember to brush in a circle motion. Thank you, DJ Khaled. Tiny circles, Devin. Do another one. Another one. Is this good? Put in that word, Devin. Don't give up.
GEICO. Save an extra 15% when you switch by October 7th.
I run an athletic program at a youth detention facility.
It's motivating young people to make better choices in life.
Becoming a Titan will show them that anything's possible. I'm living proof that there's a way out.
It's quite emotional. The Titan Games, Monday on NBC.
Special guest Eric Stonestreet drops by AGT for a head-turning, high-flying surprise.
My jaw was on this table.
Got Talent, Tuesday on NBC. Stick around later for an all-new Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon.
The First Alert Weather Team is working around the clock, looking ahead to keep you informed. Covering weather throughout the region. Get your weather updates now through our First Alert Weather app. The First Alert Weather Team, only on Dakota News Now. This is Dakota News Now.
Good evening, I'm Kelsey Castle.
Glad to have you with us at 10 o'clock. I'm Brian Allen. A U.S. Supreme Court ruling earlier today has upheld the validity of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, also known as DACA.
Beth Warden has local reaction to the program, which will continue to provide deportation protection for certain immigrants, in our top story at 10.
Today, I've spoken with several organizations, South Dakota Voices for Peace, the Dream Coalition, and here at the Multicultural Center. There is a feeling of celebration and relief at today's Supreme Court decision.
To pull somebody out, just rip them out of their life and go put them somewhere else, that isn't right.
Executive Director of the Sioux Falls Multicultural Center, Christy Nicolaisen, says many have been in fear for nearly 3 years of the potential reversal. DACA was designed for those brought to America for when they were too young to decide for themselves and then grew up here.
So if you are married and you have a child and you didn't have papers, you're going to be taken away from your husband and your kids.
Karen Benitez Lopez grew up in South Dakota, undocumented.
I didn't know what would send me back to Mexico. Every day was just living cautiously and being thankful because that could be your last day.
Regulations changed and she did eventually qualify.
But with DACA, it was just a door of opportunities were finally opened, and I knew that I could actually go get an education. did. And I did.
South Dakota State Representative and Speaker of the House Stephen Haugard says immigration has been a moving target for too long.
And that's not the kind of ambiguity that anybody should have to experience. They should either know with certainty when they come here that they're either authorized to be here or not, or that they have a pathway to citizenship or they don't.
Haugard believes Congress should make a firm decision rather than the court system.
The case is important and it addresses some things, but it leaves some uncertainty. What you saw all along the way was a very divided court.
DACA allows those brought to the U.S. to get a Social Security card, work, and study. They have to have arrived on U.S. soil prior to being 16 and have continually lived in the country since 2007. Although today is seen as a victory, it's also seen as a journey and a hope for a green card or perhaps citizenship in the future. From downtown Sioux Falls, Beth Warden, Dakota News Now.
Governor Noem is proclaiming tomorrow, June 19th, as Juneteenth Day in South Dakota. This is to mark the 155th anniversary of the enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation, which is recognized as the end of slavery in the United States. Noem says it is fitting and proper for all South Dakotans to celebrate the milestone, as South Dakota, quote, prides itself on freedom.
Tonight, Dakota News Now dedicated an entire newscast to the discussion of racism in America. Hosted by our own Sam Wright and Carleen Wild, this Dakota News Now special report brought different voices together to share their experiences, thoughts, hopes, and plans for the future of America.
The people who are supposed to be protecting me are the ones that I fear the most currently at this moment.
I saw all of you shake your heads when you said you fear for your life when you walk out the door. Is that true?
Yes.
Was that true before the events of the last few weeks?
Before, it wasn't as bad because it's not something that we saw all over the media. It wasn't as talked about, but we all knew at some point we could end up in a position like that.
You can watch the entire half-hour special on dakotanewsnow.com.
We've got a developing story at this hour regarding the 2020 race for the White House. NBC News reporting tonight that Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar is taking herself out of contention to be Joe Biden's running mate in November. Klobuchar telling MSNBC's Lawrence O'Donnell tonight that she believes Biden should select a woman of color to be his running mate. Klobuchar had been in the midst of the vetting process, thought to be on a short list of possible vice presidential hopefuls for Biden.
Another developing story just into our newsroom this evening. The Sioux Falls Area Joint Fugitive Task Force has arrested one of Minnehaha County's most wanted fugitives. 20-year-old Habib Abdul Qadir was wanted on first-degree robbery, riot, and aggravated assault charges. He was taken into custody this evening.
Our first look at weather here at 10 o'clock with our chief meteorologist, Phil Schreck. It's been an interesting day in our neck of the woods.
Yeah, started off with some rain and it cleared off to be a beautiful afternoon and evening around the area especially, and that rain continues to move away. And speaking of that rain, we got some pretty good amounts for folks that needed it. Hopefully you received the rainfall, and hopefully you didn't get too much because some places did get quite a bit. In fact, let me show you some of our rainfall amounts here as we go through, from the last 24 hours. Now this map shows a Doppler radar estimate of how much rain has come down, and then we're going to plot on top of that actual reports from some of the reporting stations. Now keep in mind, these are reporting stations that are kind of spaced out, and for example in Sioux Falls, 1.54 at the airport, but not too far away from these reporting stations you can get a lot more or a lot less. For example, at my house in the northeastern side of Sioux Falls, I received 3 inches of rain. That's not too far away from the airport there. 2 inches in Worthington. Meanwhile, in northeastern South Dakota, not as much, although Huron you had more than 1.5 inches, almost 1.5 inches in Watertown. Meanwhile, in Pierre, 14 100ths, but more just to your south. And in Winter, 41 100ths, but just south of you in Tripp County, maybe 3 or 4 inches estimated there. Where's the rainfall now? Well, it's moving on away from us. Looking ahead to tomorrow's going to be a beautiful day. 50s and 60s to start off. Then into the afternoon, 70s, light breezes. It's going to be a gorgeous Friday. We'll let you know if this will last into the weekend coming up a bit later on.
All right, Phil, thank you. We have a follow-up tonight to a fatal crash in Sioux Falls. Authorities identified the man who was killed as 58-year-old Roger Christians from Lenox. This crash happened early Monday at the I-29-229 interchange. Officials tell us Christians was heading north on 29 when he tried to take the ramp, lost control of his SUV, and then rolled. We're told that he was not wearing a seatbelt at the time and was thrown from the vehicle. He was pronounced dead at that scene.
Sioux Falls police are asking the public for help in finding a missing man. 48-year-old Nima Sherpa was last seen Saturday morning. His family says he lives near the East Side Walmart but does not have access to a vehicle. Sherpa is around 5 feet tall and weighs about 120 pounds. He is the second Sioux Falls resident to be reported missing for an extended time this month. 45-year-old Angela Armstrong hasn't been seen since June 3rd. Police expanded their search area yesterday, asking anyone outside of Sioux Falls to be on the lookout for her dark gray Chevy Traverse with 44 county plates.
Well, we now know what is next for Sioux Falls School Superintendent Dr. Brian Maher. The South Dakota Board of Regents announced earlier today that Maher will be the board's next executive director and CEO. Maher will lead South Dakota's 6 public universities and 2 specialty schools. He is expected to assume that role on July 6th. After 5 years in Sioux Falls, Maher announced his resignation as superintendent this last December, saying that it just felt like the right time.
A coronavirus update. The number of active COVID-19 infections in South Dakota continues to drop. The Department of Health is reporting 810 active cases today. That's down from 829 yesterday. Officials reported 59 new cases, along with 1,300 new negative tests. Currently, 93 patients are hospitalized with COVID-19.
Now, that dip in numbers doesn't mean the virus should be taken lightly. Sioux Falls Mayor Paul Tenhaken is encouraging people to continue taking precautions during the pandemic, saying that the, quote, playbook has not changed. And that message from the mayor is being echoed by local healthcare professionals. You know, at one point, Sioux Falls was a hotspot for the virus after an outbreak at Smithfield, and the city council considered a stay-at-home order. That experience is something the mayor does not want to go through again.
We don't want to get involved in the regulation game in South Dakota and in Sioux Falls. I sure don't. So I'm putting it on the backs of our residents to say, hey, we have an open economy, we have an open city, but let's keep it that way.
The mayor says that since the people of Sioux Falls have done a good job at slowing the curve, he does now encourage them to get out and support local businesses once again.
Speaking of Smithfield, 849 out of 853 infected employees from the Smithfield plant in Sioux Falls have recovered from COVID-19. We caught up with the plant's general manager today, who says they have done everything they can to make it a safe place to work.
We're at a new normal, and I think things are going very well, and social distancing is great, and you'll see us back up to full capacity in no time.
The Smithfield plant resumed operations last month after a temporary shutdown and visit from the CDC.
All right, runners, listen up. Big changes in store for this year's Sioux Falls Marathon. The marquee event is being scaled back to a half marathon only. That means no full marathon, no 10K, no 5K. Registration is also being limited to 550 runners. All registered runners can choose to run in the half marathon, or they can get a refund, or they can defer their registration until next year, or they can donate their registration to the Children's Miracle Network.
Some unfortunate news regarding a popular summer event, Hot Summer Nights, which was scheduled for July 15th at the W.H. Lyon Fairgrounds, has been canceled. Organizers tell us plans are already underway to hold the event next year with music, food vendors, and of course, all of those Corvettes.
But we do know Porkpalooza is coming back for another round this summer. Organizers announcing just today that the free event will take place August 28th and the 29th. They don't have a spot picked out for it yet, but they do say it will be at one of the Lifescape locations here in Sioux Falls.
People want to get out, they want to do fun things. They've been cooped up, and by the end of summer, you know, some of these issues are going to be resolved. Some strategies are going to be in place, and we're going to do everything we can to make Porkpalooza as safe and as fun for everybody that comes.
You can follow the Porkpalooza Facebook page for updates on entertainment and vendors.
We have heard about a lot of reasons to be worried about the COVID-19 virus. Tonight, what's the likelihood we'll have problems with it in the fall? We'll take a look in 9 minutes. Hi, Phil.
Well, the rest of the night, very nice. A great day tomorrow, but will it last into the weekend? We'll let you know coming up after the break.
Well, we are celebrating KDLT and KSFY's 60th anniversaries this summer with a trivia contest looking back at TV across the decades. Our 1960s quiz is up on our website right now, so turn your TV knowledge into a chance to win a prize by taking the quiz at DakotaNewsNow.com. Glad to have you along here at 10 o'clock. We'll be right back.
Dakota News Now Sports is sponsored by Heartland Chevy.
The open road, the wind in your hair, the feeling of freedom that drives us to go out and discover. At Chevy, we're committed to getting you there with confidence and peace of mind. That's why your Chevy Clean dealers commit to using enhanced vehicle cleaning measures with CDC-approved cleansers. If you need a new Equinox, get 0% APR for 72 months or $4,500 cash allowance on most models. You may even shop online and take delivery at home where available. Visit HeartlandChevyTeam.com.
Hi, I'm Norman Crow with a very special invitation for you.
And I'm Sandy. In celebration of our newest location in Devils Lake, North Dakota, and our reopening of our North Branch, Minnesota store, we're inviting everyone to save with grand opening prices at all our Carl stores.
Save up to 45% on appliances.
We also have grand opening specials throughout the store right now on TVs and mattresses.
Remember, these grand opening prices are good at all Carl's locations.
Stop in and see us.
Carl's, your servicing dealer since 1956.
Would you rather have hiccups for a week or the worst haircut ever? That's a lose-lose. But at Taco John's, choose 3 chicken street tacos or 3 chicken soft shell tacos for just $5. Win-win. Taco John's. Bigger, bolder, better.
Hi, I'm Mike Schulte with Schulte Subaru. We have always offered a concierge program where we'll pick your car up, service it, clean it, and return it to you for free. But with COVID-19, we feel this service is even more important than ever. So be safe and be smart.
Make your Father's Day family meal unforgettable with these savings at Fairway. This week, USDA Choice Whole Beef Brisket is just $2.99 a pound. Red Ripe California Strawberries are only 99 cents. Fairway American or Swiss slices are 99 cents with your coupon. Fresh salmon fillets are only $2.99 each. Enjoy every unforgettable moment from our family to yours. Fairway.
Brian and Phil, pretty nice evening out there now.
Yeah, after kind of an sort of day.
A lot of rain in some spots, which is a good thing for some folks that needed some precipitation, and things are drying out tonight and tomorrow, but we do have some rain in our forecast this weekend, so it's going to be a little unsettled both Saturday and Sunday, and that's what we'll talk about here. First of all, hey, by the way, look at this shot of downtown Sioux Falls. It's still a little bit of like twilight out there, and it's 10:15 at night. Remember when it looked like this about, let's say, 5:15 at night, you know, back in the middle of winter, so it's nice that these days are so much longer now. Here's a look at what we have coming our way the next few days. 70s both Friday and Saturday, back up to the 80s on Sunday. A little cool then again, first part of next week, then we'll start to warm things back up. By the way, tomorrow's looking great. First day of summer, some scattered storms. Same thing on Father's Day into Monday. Not all day rainfall, but a little unsettled both Saturday, Sunday, and then on into Monday. And then we're going to dry things out and quiet it down. And then beyond this, looks like normal to above normal temperatures around our area as we go through the first couple of days of July, according to the Climate Prediction Center. Precipitation, well, nothing to indicate either way, above or below normal. So they expect to be having near normal precipitation the last few days of June and the first couple days of July. There goes the rain, well away from us now. It was a very wet day across the area today, as we showed you earlier on in the newscast. 1.5 inches at Sioux Falls, but other parts of town, 3.5 inches, and that was the case over many locations. A lot of rain coming down, but it's gone. The wind has died off too, and it's going to stay pretty quiet through the night into tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, and noontime. Look at this, just staying below 10 miles an hour. It's just going to be just about a picture-perfect day tomorrow into tomorrow night. So there's the rainfall again to the east. That'll keep on moving away from us overnight. Starting the day off tomorrow with a clear to partly cloudy sky, a light breeze, temperatures in the 50s. Really good stuff. And into the afternoon, noontime, still a lot of sunshine. Some high-level clouds are making their way into central portions of South Dakota. 5 o'clock in the afternoon, still mainly clear in the east, a mix of clouds and sun here along the James River. Then turning mostly cloudy central and western South Dakota with some scattered showers. Pleasant highs in the 70s. And then tomorrow night, we'll get some scattered showers here and there, and we'll have more of those scattered about the area both on Saturday and Sunday. So here's a forecast now for Sioux Falls and Fairview, South Dakota for tomorrow. Picture perfect day. Partly cloudy, 79, light breeze, not much humidity. And then we'll bring back a chance for some scattered storms Saturday, still in the 70s, up into the 80s on Father's Day with some scattered storms and a mix of clouds and sunshine. A few more isolated storms on Monday, the high of 80, but then the rest of the 10-day forecast at this point looking dry. 70s Tuesday, Wednesday, and by the time we hit next weekend, we're talking upper 80s to low 90s. Aberdeen and Hitchcock, here's your 10-day forecast. Looking great tomorrow. Chance for some scatter storms both Saturday and Sunday. Just slight chances of isolated storms Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Rest of the 10-day forecast looking very quiet. And in Pierre and Reliance, a nice one tomorrow. A mix of clouds and sun in the afternoon. A chance for some scatter storms Saturday. Just slight chances Sunday, Monday. Big again on Wednesday. But the 10-day forecast looking pretty quiet after that. Back up to the 90s by Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of next week, Brian.
Thank you, Phil. We have been talking of resuming normal medical checkups after many of them were delayed by the pandemic. Well, in addition to checkups, there's something else you should be thinking about. That's next in the Avera Medical Minute on Dakota News Now at 10.
During Home's Grand Opening Sale at Seasonal Concepts, take up to an extra 10% off sale prices on everything patio, plus free no-contact shipping. Shop in the store, by personal appointment, or online. The Grand Reopening Patio Sale at Home Seasonal Concepts.
At Bernardi GM in Mitchell, we deliver. Roll into summer with a new SUV with great deals that'll really get your engine revving. Choose your new SUV at BernardiGM.com. We deliver to your door with our safe 100% at-home test drive and easy sales process. Got a trade? Now is the time. We deliver the best in trade-in values with current market conditions. We deliver top dollar on your trade. Contact us today for a fast, fair, and easy trade appraisal. We deliver convenience. Shop absolutely anytime at BernardiGM.com. Bernardi GM in Mitchell. We deliver for you.
Fleet Farm has what dads want for Father's Day, whether he's chilling by the fire or heating up the grill. Fleet Farm has great deals for Dad. Get a $10 Fleet Farm gift card when you spend $50 or more on Yeti drinkware. And select Under Armour apparel for the family, 25% off our low fleet price. Plus, Fleet Farm gift cards make the perfect gift for Father's Day. Fleet Farm, built for real life.
As we look ahead, we've learned to notice, to see things from a more grateful perspective, to see the value of today and to see the best in others. When it comes to what matters most, what's worth seeing and what's seeing worth? Looking back, the value is placed in how we see things, and that, amidst all that's happening now, is worth seeing.
It's the Grand Reopening Sale at Home Furniture. All home showrooms are now open. You can save up to an extra 10% off sale prices store-wide. Shop in the store, by personal appointment, or online, plus free no-contact shipping. The Grand Reopening Sale going on now at Home Furniture.
You know how you can be certain summer is here? It's the first great sale of the summer at the fairgrounds. Shop over 2,800 vehicles from 10 area dealerships all in one place.
Stop by for some great deals on new Chevrolets. You can get a new 2020 Chevy car for only $12,995. Or take $10,000 off MSRP on a new 2020 Chevy Suburban Premier.
Find new roads at Billion Chevrolet at the WH Line Fairgrounds through July 2nd or BillionAuto.com/Chevrolet.
Dakota News Now is sponsored by Casey's.
This Medical Minute, sponsored by Avera.
Medical professionals are voicing concern over what they call a second wave, which is not about the pandemic, but of those who develop serious health issues because they didn't seek any treatment. Avera Medical Minute reporter Beth Warden tonight introduces us to a family who is looking to stay healthy by getting back on track with their immunization schedule.
Rachel Yagi is bringing in 5-year-old Ruby and 20-month-old Lily to see their pediatrician.
You know, when we had first decided to have kids, my husband and I, made the decision that we were going to vaccinate our kids. So we found a doctor that would help us keep us on schedule.
Dr. Kara Bruning understands why vaccination schedules were disrupted for the family when COVID became a concern. The office called them back when it was safe to come in.
Initially, that was a good idea because we were trying to flatten the curve. People did a great job about staying home and wearing their masks to help with flattening the curve. But now it's better.
What's happened in the last 3 months, though, is a growing list of kiddos that need to get caught up on vaccinations. Rachel was impressed with all the precautions at their appointment.
Required 2 went out to wear a mask, and then when we came in, they checked all of our temperatures. When we came up the elevator, they had a glass screen like in front of the receptionist, and I had to fill out some paperwork, and they cleaned the clipboard before they gave it to me. And then instead of coming to sit in the waiting room to wait for the doctor to come call our names, they just told us what room we were in, and we went straight into that room. So there's no, sitting in the waiting room where a bunch of people are going to be or anything like that.
They even changed how appointments are scheduled.
We're seeing the well kids up in the morning and even the early afternoon, and then the sick kids after that. So if you come in at a time where we're just seeing well kids, there won't be sick kids around.
If your kids are due for vaccinations, it's time to make an appointment.
We don't want measles to break out going around right now. Our pertussis, all of these diseases are still out there. The only one that we really eradicated is smallpox. So all the rest of them can still happen. So it's super important to bring your child in to vaccinate them. We don't need that going around as well. We want to keep them safe and protected.
When their vaccinations are up to date, parents and pediatricians have peace of mind.
So it's a good time to come in and bring your kid in to vaccinate them and get them caught back up because people are behind.
You're doing fabulous. Such a big girl.
You'd rather work with little kids than adults? Absolutely. Kids are the best.
With your Avera Medical Minute, Beth Warden, Dakota News Now.
For more information on vaccinations and an immunization schedule for any age, head over to avera.org. Next in sports, a look at the NCAA's plans for bringing college sports back and a senior salute to the DeSmet Bulldogs. We'll be right back.
The road is calling, and now you'll be able to answer. Because at Cadillac, we're committed to keeping you moving by giving you the option to shop online and take delivery at home where available. And if your vehicle needs service, our certified service experts are ready to help. Schedule your appointment at Cadillac.com. Cadillac, we have your back. Get 0.9% APR for 72 months, plus $1,500 purchase allowance on a 2020 Cadillac XT4, XT5, and XT6, plus deferred monthly payments for 120 days.
Save big, it's the 4th of July mattress super sale at Unclaimed Freight Furniture. Get $200 instant savings on select Restonic mattresses. Upgrade to all new Sealy Response technology and save up to $200. Shop now at all 9 Unclaimed Freight Furniture locations.
Hello. In these difficult times, we want to thank you for your service, compassion, and dedication. And remember, we are in this together.
This message is proudly sponsored by Sioux Falls Federal Credit Union.
To the essential workers keeping us all safe, healthy, and fed. And from our Sioux Falls Fed frontline to yours, we see you, we appreciate you, and we support you. We can't do what we do without you.
At Bernardi Ford in Mitchell, we deliver. We deliver great Ford deals like no one else, with the region's best inventory and literally tons more on the way. We deliver F-150s, Explorers, Expeditions, Escapes, and more. We deliver Ford buying power with 0 interest for 72 months on select 2019 and 2020 inventory. Got a trade? Bring it in. We deliver the best in trade values. We deliver test drives. We deliver on price. And we deliver to your door with our 100% at-home, safe, and easy sales process. Bernardi Ford in Mitchell. We deliver for you.
Go to DakotaNewsNow.com and stay connected. For all of your local news stories, weather forecasts, and sport highlights, go to DakotaNewsNow.com and stay connected.
Give your bathroom a fresh update and get 11% off everything at Menards. Save on a new Braun bath fan. Prevent damage from excess moisture with this classic ventilation fan with light. It fits any decor and is $48.94 after 11% off. Update your bathroom with Magic Woods Elements vanities. This Stratton bath vanity features a gray finish with soft closed doors. $204.69 after 11% off. Start saving with 11% off everything now at Menards.
KSFY News is sponsored by Menards. This is Dakota News Now Sports.
Though it'll rely on state and local health policies, the NCAA has set its most definitive path yet toward a college football season. The NCAA Division I Football Oversight Committee has finalized a plan for summer activities and preseason practices, with action to formalize it expected from the Division I Council on Wednesday. Under it, teams can begin film session reviews and required strength and conditioning from July 13th through the 23rd. From July 24th through August 6th, they would be allowed up to 8 hours per week of strength and conditioning, 6 hours for walkthroughs, and 6 more hours for film review and team and individual meetings. Finally, preseason practice would begin on August 7th, leading into September 5th opening games. South Dakota State is set to host Butler that day, while South Dakota heads to Iowa State. And Coyote coach Bob Nielsen is happy to have a path forward.
think this provides us an opportunity to ensure that our student athletes are going to be in the kind of physical condition that they need to be to start what are the rigors of fall camp in preparation for the season.
Of course, all these plans are written in pencil to the extent the COVID-19 pandemic could completely erase them if it takes a turn for the worse. Either way, Nielsen knows the virus isn't going anywhere when players do report, further enforced by a report today that 13 football players from the University of Texas tested positive. And there's plenty of work to do over the next month to be ready to safely welcome athletes back.
We're going to see more small group practicing, you know, and how we break down meetings, those kinds of things. You know, there's some new equipment that's even being prototyped right now that, you know, I think schools will probably look at that is designed to maybe help reduce exposure.
The NCAA Division I Council did approve plans for men's and women's basketball summer activities, along with voluntary non-physical activities that are permitted now. Team and individual meetings and film sessions can be held from July 1st through the 19th, beginning July 20th and running up until the start of classes. Programs can hold required summer activities such as skill training, strength and conditioning. Out-of-season workouts can begin on the first day of practice, and preseason practices can begin 42 days ahead of their first scheduled games. The NCAA also announced that it will wait to vote on a legalized path for Division III schools to move directly to Division I until April of next year, though it has opened the door for St. Thomas to begin its transition and entrance into the Summit League early if they pursue a waiver that can be acted on before then. Under current rules, a Division III school would have to go to Division II first and wait a minimum of 12 years before going to Division I. It's time for another senior salute to honor teams whose season came to an early end due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And tonight we recognize a pair of teams at one school who could have brought home a pair of state titles. That's something the DeSmet girls basketball team did in 2019 when they claimed the State B championship. The Bulldogs were a threat to repeat this year, going 22-4 and knocking off third-seeded Fulton 50-45 in the final game of this year's state tournament before it was canceled. It was a group that relished the title of defending champion and lived for big moments.
A lot of people think they have a lot of pressure, but you kind of don't. You have the experience, and we just knew that we had that experience, and it really helped us this year.
They've been in a lot of big games with some of these girls, a lot of big games, and not only in the state tournament last year, but you know, in different classics and stuff that we played in. Like I said, our schedule's really tough, so you know, they really battled. They really got a lot of grit, and just really proud of the girls.
And the school certainly had a chance to pull off the rare championship sweep with their boys basketball team, the top seed heading into the State B basketball tournament with a 21-2 record. Now they will have their top scorer, Kaylin Gary, and several other players back next year for another crack at it. However, this was it for Andrew Holland, Baylor Beck, and Dom Hansen, who played their final games in Bulldog uniforms. The girls team, meanwhile, says goodbye to 4 seniors. Autumn Wilkinson, who you heard from in the soundbite, along with Emily Martins, Michelle Weiss, and Raina Beck. Our congratulations and senior salute to the basketball teams of DeSmet. A couple seniors to be have firmed up their college plans after high school. Aberdeen's Reese Burkhart and Pierre's Regan Bolway each announced via Twitter that they've committed to play college football at South Dakota State. Bolway led Pierre's state championship team with 40 receptions for 842 yards and 11 touchdowns, and also had a school record 13.5 sacks on defense. Burkhart is a 6'8" tight end for the Golden Eagles, who also had a football and basketball offer to play at UND. If that name sounds familiar at SDSU, it's because it is. His sister Peyton plays for the women's basketball team. And finally, the Sanford Pentagon will host 4 weeks of MMA fights next month in connection with the Legacy Fighting Alliance. You can check out our website for more on that. That's a look at sports. Phil's back in a moment with a final check of your forecast.
It's either the assurance of a 165-point certification process, or it isn't. It's either testing an array of advanced safety systems, or it isn't. It's either the peace of mind of a standard unlimited mileage warranty, or it isn't. For those who never settle, it's either Mercedes-Benz certified pre-owned, or it isn't. The Mercedes-Benz certified pre-owned sales event, now through June 30th, only at your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer.
Right now, the health and well-being of one of us decides the health and well-being of all of us. Our need to be together keeps us apart, and the distance we keep brings us closer, so we can get to the other side. We'll get there, but we have to get there together. Today, tonight, and tomorrow, we're all partners.
See 90-second tips for life every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Dakota News Now. Sponsored by these local businesses. Make your Father's Day family meal unforgettable with these savings at Fairway. This week, USDA Choice whole beef brisket is just $2.99 a pound. Fairway sandwich bread is only 88 cents. Kemp's ice cream is just $1.99 with your coupon. All natural bone-in pork shoulder butts are only 98 cents a pound. Enjoy every unforgettable moment from our family to yours. Fairway.
Go to DakotaNewsNow.com and stay connected.
You know how you can be certain summer is here? It's the first great sale of the summer at the fairgrounds. Shop over 2,800 vehicles from 10 area dealerships all in one place. Credit less than perfect? Apply for credit pre-approval at BillionAuto.com. Then make the short drive to huge fairground savings. Compare 13 new car franchises and thousands of used vehicles starting at $29.90. And we want to sell them, not move them back. The savings end July 2nd at the WH Lyon Fairgrounds or BillionAuto.com.
The First Alert Weather Team, only on Dakota News Now.
Eric, Vanessa, and Aaron, weekday mornings on Dakota News Now.
Going to be a gorgeous day tomorrow. Let's get right to it with the day planner in Sioux Falls. Not much wind.